Check it, cause I ain't got no time to lose. Check it, which time to use ya? Check it, check it, check it, cause I ain't got no time to lose. Check it, check it, check it, check it.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Appreciate y'all tuning back in. Today, Bible Study in the Hood, what we want to talk about is a very serious subject, actually a slew of subjects that individuals and families, schools, workplaces are dealing with right now. And basically, what it is death. You know, death is a serious, abrupt change in families and individual lives where one could become confused. One might lose their way when a loved one is gone. So what I wanted to do today was assist those out there that are dealing with someone passing. And I'm quite sure, at least in the U.S., everybody personally knows, at least in 2020, somebody who has passed. And it's sad, but it's a reality. And by death being a reality, everything else that comes with death is also a reality. What do I mean by that? When someone passes, that means their essence or their spirit is no longer in their vessel, which is their body. And when that happens, the physical body ceases to function. Henceforth, you have a funeral or you have a cremation. You have some type of ceremonial, ritualistic type of service, either mourning or celebrating their passing. Now, there's a lot of speculation out there where we pass and where we go. Okay, you have different religions that have different religious beliefs. In the Christian religion, by this being a Bible study, and we do use the King James Bible in this particular Bible study. So therefore, you have a Christian ideology or a Christian belief. The reason why I'm being so precise is because, again, different religious beliefs celebrate death or passing much different than another religion. You know, I'm not going to name names and what types of religion, but what I will say is some definitely want to cremate their ancestors or their individuals who've passed. Some don't believe in that at all. But either way, whatever the societal norm is, or whatever the family norm is, or whatever the family belief is, their goal is to reverence or celebrate or mourn the passing. So it's an acknowledgement. It's an acknowledgement of a transition. Guess what? No matter what, we all have to transition. And once we do transition, what is left behind? It's your legacy. What is your legacy? What are you doing right now while you have breath, while you have a heartbeat, while you have brain functions? What are you doing right now so when you're not here anymore, people will talk about you? Now, some people thrive on being hurtful, hateful, a hater, malicious. Some people love being obnoxious. Some people like that energy and they want to be known for that energy, especially in the streets. Some people want that reputation as super goon. I'm not knocking it. That's their individual choices with the individual consequences that come with those choices. So if they want to be known as a goon, so be it. How is that going to reflect the other children in the family, though? So if their role model or his legacy, talking about a dad or a granddad, was a goon, got a reputation in the penitentiary, a reputation in the streets, what's the likely chance of his kids want to be goons? His nephews want to be goons. His cousins want to be goons. See, that's what a legacy is. You leaving behind a story that other people could pick up and emulate or model or respect or spit on. So what you doing right now, these young tykes and these young princesses is watching. They're watching what you're doing. And it's very important when you pass, what are going to be in their heads? What are they going to tell their children? Are those goons, second generation goons, going to tell their kids, third generation, to be goons too? So everybody could get numbers? So everybody could have post-release control? You will be known in the joint, but what does that do? I'm not belittling the joint. I'm just saying if that's what you want, go for it. But what I'm saying is, if that's where you are now, that's not the only alternative. You can have positive changes to create a positive legacy. Well, how can I be positive and everything around me is negative? Get away from the things that are negative. First of all, you got headphones, you could tune them out. That's number one. Number two, you got a mouth and you got self-functioning, so you don't have to answer nor rebuttal anything they got to say to you, so therefore you won't be arguing. Third, you have legs. If you have legs and they function, you can walk away. If you don't have legs, you can wheel away. You don't have to engage. You don't have to engage in negative confrontation. And if you do, you could engage in a different manner. Instead of being forceful, shut your mouth and listen. That might help. That might alleviate some things. But back to the point. The point being, if you create a legacy of goons and the goons start getting in trouble and getting hurt, or you find yourself going to one of their funerals, just know it's your fault for helping create that legacy. In the Bible, it talks about how the sons is going to pay for the father's sins. That's in there. It talks about your negative or evil tidings that you spew upon society. What happens? Some call it karma. Some say, hey, you reap what you sow. In the Bible, it says seed time and harvest time. As long as the earth remains, shall not fail. You're going to sow what you reap. Now, let's even take it down to a molecular scientific level for the individuals that are nerds like me. If you study quantum physics, you know you're looking at atoms, you're looking at different molecules, you're looking at the different structures, But if you go beyond that, you also go into how these electrons and how these atoms react in their environment. And what is their environment? It's Earth, it's space, it's anything that has any type of matter. We can't see oxygen and carbon dioxide, but it exists. So therefore, in the quantum physics realm, it does exist. In the quantum physics realm, there's a yin and the yang, quote unquote. I'm just making this simple. It's opposites. It's like an alternative type of reality, but it is reality. The same way you would take a rock and throw it in the ocean or throw it in a lake and you see the splash ripple out, that water, that rock, when it hits the water, creates a reaction. Wham! And that wave continues to go. Where is it going? What is it? Technically, you could say it's water, then you go to the molecules. You go down, basically it's energy. Okay? That energy has to go somewhere and that energy has to come back. Where in the quantum physics realm, when something happens here, like me pushing my hand this way, just like that wave went like this, in the quantum physics realm, if I wave my hand like this, at the same exact time, the opposite is happening on the alternative side of where I'm actually are. I know that's a little heavy, but for the nerds, I'm taking you there. Now let's get back. Now, when we talk about legacy, it's not just with the men. We have to look at the women. When we look at legacy with women, what do we want it to be? Do we want it to be we was a housewife, we was a hard worker, we was a good wife, we was a girlfriend, we was a thought, we was a priestess, or we was whatever? What is your legacy going to be? Why is this why? Why does this even matter? Why is this even relevant to you trying to pay some bills and finding a job and getting milk for your kids? And it's going to sound weird, it's going to sound cliche, but your existence is your reality. Your existence is your reality. Well, I'm existing anyway in this reality. What you bring forth from here, technically here, to here, that's really your existence. You live in your heart and you live in your head. And that determines your reality of what happens out here in the physical realm. Well, how's that true? Okay, let's get into that. We originally said we're dealing with death. We're talking about death. When we talk about death, there are factors that come with death. What are they? Well, let's get it cracking. Let's get it going. One of the things that you have to deal with is sadness. You have to deal with the sadness of what happened. Well, what is sadness? Well, according to the dictionary or according to even Wikipedia, I'm doing basic research. I'm going to keep this as basic as possible. So I'm not going to go into no super empirical, scientifical, psychological articles written 40 years ago, yesterday, and 3 days ago. I'm not doing that. I'm basic information for basic research, so you can go look for this yourself. So sadness. What is sadness? Overall, sadness is an emotion, or it's a emotional pain. To be sad is emotional pain. Well, you can't just leave that there like that. You have to break that down. You got emotions, which are one thing, and you also have pain, that's another. So when you're sad, technically, you're taking two things, so it's technically becoming a compound problem because it's two or more things happening at the same time to you, causing you to exist in a certain way. Does sadness happen outside? When you hit or cut your arm, if you know, on a tree or something, or whatever you're doing, and you just cut your arm or hit your elbow or something, can you see that your body is sad? No. You or hurt, you feel it. Like you feel hurt or you feel pain. For individuals that have had one of their legs cut off, amputated, due to some type of disease or accident, they feel sad. They can't see the sadness of their limb, but when the limb has suffered, they see it and they feel sad, so they immediately internalize the pain. Same thing happens when somebody dies. Their family, so they're connected to you, or you might have known them, which means if you think about it, if you want to go deep, you had to share some type of connection or energetic or energy bond with that person. That's an energy bond. How do molecules and atoms stay together? It's an energy bond. It's a magnetic type of bond. So technically, when you bond with a person, if you take it to the quantum physics level, your electrons make some type of connection. You're making some type of connection with that person. Whether they stay or they dissipate, or when you further apart, you still feel that connection when you think about them, but that's internal. If we can see what's happening in a quantum physics level, we might be able to see the outside connection, but we can't. So emotions are internal feelings of pain, which means it hurts. It makes you downtrodden. Pain makes you off balance. Off balance from what? Your reality. Again, you feel the pain inside. So it affects your reality. When people are sad on the inside, this is their reality on the outside. Sad face, head down, grinding of the teeth. So what's happening inside affects the outside. So when we're talking about death, sadness is a part of it. You also have, outside of pain, we talked about emotions. Now let's go over what emotions are. Emotions are biological states associated with the nervous system. So the nervous system is what's going on in your body. It's the feelings, it's what's happening from the brain stem, which is in the back of your head, all the way down your spine, which is where your nerve track is. Or I call it the nerve racetrack, because that's where they at. And they racing to go where they supposed to go. So if you stub your toe, whop, it races the pain or the feeling races down there. Or if you gripping something or you lifting weights, the nerves go to your arms. So I call it the nerve racetrack. So emotions are biological states associated with the nervous system brought on by neurophysiological changes. So it said emotions are biological states, which means they have to deal with anything that's living. So anything that is living, technically, we could assume they got emotions because it says biological states. Now, I'm only going to speak in terms of human. I can't speak of other species. But I've seen my dogs in the past get sad. But we're going to stick with humans. Brought on by neurophysiological changes. Neuro is the brain. What's happening in the brain? Physiological is the physical stuff that's inside of your brain. So what it's saying is emotions are biological states associated with what's going on in your head. That's how they're brought on. And usually they're brought on by the five senses, which is something you saw, something you heard, something you ate, something you touched, whatever. But it's happening in your head. So when somebody passes, you have to think a certain thing, feel a certain way. And what does it do? It changes your behavior. It says it's associated with thoughts, feelings, and behavior responses. Behavior responses. This is Wikipedia. Behavioral responses. So it's saying emotions are going to determine how you behave. How you feeling on the inside is going to determine what you do on the outside. What else helps determine your behavior? Your environment. Your environment shapes your behavior. B.F. Skinner. Your environment shapes your behavior. Where you live shapes your behavior. If you hear gunshots every night, you annoyed it. You're locking your doors. Things of that nature. It's shaping your behavior. If you live on 100 acres and your closest neighbors is 5 miles away, you probably got your doors unlocked. You got your dogs out, you got your shotgun next to you, you got your 357 on your hip, so you ain't worried, you leave your door unlocked. But your environment shapes your behavior. Well, if your environment is chaotic and full of sadness, it's going to affect your emotions. If you're sad every day from what you see, and you ain't got no money, and your baby's hungry, and the child support ain't hit, you're sad. But we talking about death. The last frontier. Your last movements on this planet. That's the heaviest you can get. How do you deal with that? It also says there is currently, technically, no scientific consensus on a full definition, which means emotions could be so much more. Emotions are often intertwined with mood, how you feeling, your temperament, what you're doing with how you're feeling, your personality. Your disposition, your creativity, and your motivation. Your emotion controls all of that. Your emotion controls your motive. How? How many people say, I don't feel like working out? How you feel has nothing to do with working out. Working out is physical. You could say it's mental too, but if you say you don't feel like working out and you don't do it, but you get your butt up and do it, it's going to happen. But if what's inside of you is more harsh or more less or demotivating, Your body ain't going nowhere. So when we're talking about death, we have to learn how to some type of way regulate our emotions. And that's why we talk about grieving, being in despair. Some people feel helpless. They feel sorrow. When some people die, people get lethargic. People feel, oh, they can't get out of bed. Why? You know why? Because emotions and negative emotions can cause persistent depressive disorder, which means consistent sadness can lead to mental illness. It can lead to persistent depressive disorder. It can also lead to major depressive disorder. Now, I'm going to just read a definition of what major depressive disorders could be. Other names of it is, you probably heard, clinical depression, unipolar depression, unipolar disorder, recurrent depression. Now when we talk about major depressive disorder, that's basically, in so many words, you can't get out of bed. So major depressive disorder, or MDD, also known as depression, is simply depression. It's a mental disorder. It's characterized by at least spending 2 weeks of pervasive low mood. Or basically you just sad. Remember we talked about at the beginning? Sadness. Or low self-esteem. Or loss of interest. Or your normally enjoyable activities, you don't want to perform them. Why? Because you're depressed. You have major depressive disorder. So technically at that point, you become mentally ill. You become mentally ill. And being mentally ill over a period of time, according to the American Psychological Association, it can cause delusions and hallucinations. Depending on how severe it is, it says major depression is more severe and lasts longer than sadness. Wait a minute. So what you saying is, first you could get sad. And if it stay on you or get heavy enough, it turns to depression. And then if it continues to grow, then you have major depressive disorder. But even if you got over your sadness, the major depressive disorder could still be there because it lasts longer than the sadness. It's heavy. It's heavy. So this is something that if you have had any of these, I'm not a doctor, but I am a qualified mental health specialist. I study and I have a master's degree in psychology. And I also work with individuals and is licensed to assist with chemical dependency or substance abuse. And I see these symptoms. I see this daily. But when we're talking about death, somebody you love for 60 years, 50 years, 40 years, 30 years, 20 years. I ain't going to go down to the little ages. I hate talking about that kind of stuff. But, somebody you've known for a long time and you had a lot of experiences with past. It's very hurtful. It's hard. The most common time of onset for depression is in the 20s and the 30s. And it says females are affected about twice as often as male, Why? Probably because they are already more emotional. That just makes sense. And major depressive disorder in 2017 affected approximately 163 million people. That's 2% of the world's population. So if you're feeling like this, you ain't alone. If you had somebody out there that just passed, you're going to have to find some strength. You're going to need to. Because if you allow the grief, if you allow the sadness, if you allow the depression to stay on you and inside of you, it's going to control what you do outside of you. So by you being sad and you becoming major depressive or majorly depressed could make you technically just be like a zombie, just somebody in the shell, going through the day, going through the motions, not existing, not really living. The other person is gone. Death is a natural part of life. Not saying just get over it. That's not what I'm saying. We've all had people pass. But what we need to do is we have to find coping mechanisms, ways to get past it. And we'll get into that. Now, according to the Psychological Association, being depressed causes stress. So it says the meta-analysis also revealed that people who are older and people who are already sick are prone to stress-related immune changes. Now, when we talk about stress, if you stressed out a lot, it affects your immune system. That's basically what they just said, and it don't make it better. It's basically saying a 2002 study by Lyanne McGuire, PhD, of Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, with Keiko Glaser and Glaser reported that even chronic subclinical mild depression may suppress an older person's immune system. That's why I say we're going to deal with, people that are a little bit older. So it affects their immune system. So those with chronic or mild depression had weaker lymphocyte T cell responses to two mitogens, which model how the body responds to viruses and bacteria. So in so many words, without sounding like a nerd, the T cells in your body can respond to fight off bacteria and viruses. That's why during this COVID, the stress alone could allow their immune systems to become weaker. And when they did get COVID, it knocked them down. The stress that's put out in society by certain groups, keeping you stressed out from watching TV, certain programming that you constantly feeding yourself by choice. They don't even got to force feed you, by choice. Causes stress, causes the stress hormone. Let me explain something. Let me explain something. How strong stress is. If you ever heard of somebody getting having a heart transplant or a liver transplant or something like that, right? Do you know what a lot of the times the anesthesiologists or the doctors use once they put that organ inside the other person's body? So if you had somebody that needed a heart, okay, and they got a heart from somebody, a donor. This is a foreign heart. This is not their heart. They got it from somebody. They did a heart transplant. Boom. Once the heart is in the body, you know what they usually shoot up? the patients with and keep them on a regimen of? The stress hormone. They shoot them up with the stress hormone. Why? Because it weakens the immune system. Why would you want to do that? Your immune system's job, your immune system's job is to fight off foreign invaders, which is bacteria, viruses, whatever, dirt, whatever come in. Okay? If your immune system is weak, it's getting whooped on. The viruses win, the bacteria win. And that's what happened a lot of the times when your body's stressed out. So if you're constantly in a stressed out situation, you broke, baby daddy cheating, you cheating on him, he locked up, you ain't got no money, whatever you going through, you just lost a job, you lost some, whatever, but death had the heaviest, especially if it's a murder. You stressed out. So if you don't get over it, you're depressed. And then if you consistently don't get over it, your immune system becomes weaker, which means you're going to allow yourself to make yourself sick, which means now you are susceptible to disease. And now disease kick in. Well, what diseases? Well, when we talk about diseases, you have all different types. You have autoimmune diseases. You have terminal diseases. You have all kind of diseases that could come in. But before we get into that, let's define what a disease is. A disease, and this is just, again, Wikipedia. A disease is a particular abnormal condition that negatively affects the structure or function of all or part of an organism. Basically, it's saying anything that's living. A disease is something or abnormal condition that negatively affects the way that it's existing. Okay? And that is not due to any immediate external injury. So it's just saying you can't necessarily get a disease from an external injury. But diseases are often known to be medical conditions that are associated with specific signs and symptoms. A disease may be caused by external factors such as a pathogen, which is a foreign invader that get in your body, or by internal dysfunctions. Oh, internal dysfunctions. Your immune system is an internal function. So if you have an internal dysfunction, you could get a disease. Here it is. It says, for example, internal dysfunctions of the immune system can produce a variety of different diseases, including various forms of immune autodeficiency, hypersensitivity, allergies, and autoimmune disorders. Now, there's all kind of autoimmune disorders. Crohn's disease, vitiligo. You have all kinds of autoimmune, lupus. You have all types of other diseases that come in. So that brings us to, how can we try to stop this process from happening, even if somebody we dearly love has passed? Me, who have participated in sessions and have done countless hours of grief counseling or assisting with coping mechanisms or, speaking with individuals, assisting them with bereavement issues, which is when people die. You have to learn how to grieve healthily. You have to learn how to grieve health. It's okay to cry. See, number one, it's okay to cry. Now, let me say this. What I'm sharing with you on this video is just information. I'm not telling you to do none of this. I'm not advising you to do it. It's just information. You use it or not use it up to your own discretion. But if you learn positive ways to grieve, you might be able to stop the depression. You're going to be sad. So it's unrealistic to say that you might not get sad. That's a normal emotion. We already went over that. But depression, that's a dysfunction. That's a mental disorder. That means that shouldn't be there. So in order not to slip into depression, especially major depressive disorder, you're going to have to cope, or you're going to have, I'm not saying you, but an individual should want to grasp and understand what has just happened. Understand that death is part of life. It's unrealistic to think your daughter or your son ain't gonna never die. I know that's harsh to hear, but everybody dies. So the sooner we come into that reality, the less, that's 1 or 2 degrees less harsher than the sting would be. Okay, we could deal with that. So what that does is that opens up to be able to learn to cope. Cope with what? With grief. What is grief? It's a deep and poignant distress caused by, or as if bereavement thought about my grandma for a second. My bad. It's a deep distress caused by somebody that passes. I remember when my grandma passed. I was sad because I wanted her to stay, but I was happy that she made it to the age she made it to, past 70. And I've known her my whole life. And I ain't gonna tell all her business, but while she was going through her process of passing, I was able to talk to her every day. And anything that I ever wanted to say to her, I was able to say. Any questions I ever had, she answered them. I got hugs and kisses while she was suffering. You know, other family members coming to help. But it was a lot of grief. I got family members right now that's still grieving. And I ain't gonna perp. I still feel emotionally connected to her energy, even though she's now my ancestor. But I've accepted her passing. So by me accepting it, it allows me to, when I do think about her being gone, it actually fulfills me, because I look at the legacy she left behind. Is tons of us. Tons. All them people that came through her womb, her legacy. Remember we talked about legacy? Her legacy is huge. Huge. I'm going to just give you an example. I got one sister with 8 kids and my mama had 11. I ain't got to go no further than that. Cousins, aunties, nieces, and there's tons of us. So her legacy is going to continue. Because of her womb, we all here. Because of her womb, I'm here. Because of my grandma's womb, my sons is here. And when she was running around, playing when she was younger, playing on the slides, playing tetherball, we call it tetherball in the hood, playing tetherball, eating her school lunch at school, watching her, I don't even know if they had TV back then, or reading her little books, playing with her paper dolls. She would have never thought she would have had a legacy like this. So that's why it's important for why you in this existence to be the best you could be and to be happy as many days as you can, because you really ultimately control your happiness. I understand you link up with somebody else and they hurt you, which causes grief, sadness, emotion. We could go down that same rabbit trail. But again, you have to learn how to get past. I'm not saying get over it. We have to learn how to get past that moment in time when that person left. Because if you look at it on a linear scale, if you were to take 100 blips or 100 notches, that's basically about how long we live. Let's say if this was the 100 notches, the beginning, this is the end. And somebody in your family passed at 50. They had this much time to live. Did they enjoy that time that they had? Or was they miserable, sad, and downtrodden this time? And now if you already 50, you got this much left to 100. I'm assuming you were living to 100. What if you live in the 70 and you 50? You got about this much time left to be happy and not focused on the people that already done passed and be sad. And your life is miserable because remember, what's happening in here happens out here. Death is a natural part of life. Getting over a person's death or getting past that moment is a part of life as well. We have to learn how to grieve. How do we do that? Talk about it to people in healthy conversations. Speak on the happy things, the happy experiences. These are things you can do. I'm not telling you to do it. These are things you can do. Talk about happy experiences you had with the person. So when you think about them, it's good memories. You could visit them. You could talk to them. You could create a memorial fund. You could create scholarships. You could write them a letter. You could write them a letter, fold it up, and just put them up. Because you feel that you're communicating with them. Don't expect a response, a physical response, because they don't have a physical body no more. Not saying you might not get some other type of response. I didn't say that, but I'm just saying. But we have to learn how to grieve. Some people need counseling. Some people need counseling. I work with a lot of therapists. You know? Counseling, if you have the right fit, can definitely help. I've helped a lot of people. It works if the person who's in grief or sadness wants the help. I have some, they got MDD or major depressive disorder. They came in diagnosed as depressed, but quit and left therapy with major depressive disorder because they couldn't get past it. It don't get better if you can't try to move forward. It does not get better. So if you still existing, it probably would be a good idea to want to get better, especially if you got people that's dependent on you. I've had G's in the street that wanted to leave the street or have left the street and can't get that money like they used to get. And they've got depressed. And some have done some things and they not here no more. And some almost done some things. But they're still here because they got past it. They got past it. And their life grew. And once they got past it and was able to see that it's life after depression and sadness, they say they don't ever want to go back to that place again. So if you need therapy, go get therapy. If you need to just talk to somebody, go talk to somebody. But make sure it's people that's going to be positive, or people that at least are going to listen. And sometimes you got to talk to yourself. I'm not saying like to yourself, but consecrate yourself or get away from everybody else and just cast your cares upon the Lord. Whoever you worship. This is a Bible study, so we talking about God. But wherever you are, whoever you worship, you got to lean on that. You got to lean on that higher energy, that higher power. Because it's going to be hard to do it alone. You're going to need some physical help from some other people, but you definitely going to need you might definitely need some spiritual help because it's emotional, it's on the inside, it's spiritual. So with that being said, what I wanted to do for you is I want to cast your cares. I want to cast your cares to the universal God. That's what they call him, the universal God. I want to cast your cares upon the Lord. And for those that don't worship the Christian God, whoever you worship, let's cast your cares upon them right now. Because I'm interested in helping everybody. So, one of the first things we're going to do, I think we should handle sadness. If you can't see this, it says sadness. We're going to take care of sadness. So what I want you to do is put your sadness in this piece of paper. Cast your cares on it right now. What you feeling sad about, what you've been feeling sad about, what's been making you upset, what's just been making you downtrodden, things you just can't get past, get over. This is your point of contact. For whatever reason, you clicked on this video. So you're supposed to hear this. I'm going to give you a minute. Cast your cares upon your... I need your sadness on this, okay, y'all? I need your sadness. 3. Say it out loud. Say what it is. Put it on here. 2. Because we're going to get rid of it today. And when we get rid of this, we're not coming back to it. We're going to burn it up. It's going to be whooshed. We casting it up. In the Bible, they did sacrifices. They burnt animals. They burnt meat. What did it do? The smell resonated. Even God said in the Bible, even God said he likes the way those sacrifices smell. He called them offerings. Well, let's offer him up this sadness. Okay? Because he is the one that will be able to heal your sadness. Man alone can't solve spiritual problems. So you're going to need some spiritual help. As above, so below. His ways is not our ways. Okay? Now we done burnt up the things that were making you sad. We done cast them up to him. So let's not go back to those. Let's not go back. That's like a rock we done threw behind us. Phew! Why would we go back and look for it? We don't need it. Let's move forward without it. Let's move forward without it. Next. Let's take this sickness. Let's take this sickness, okay? So whatever you feeling with as far as being sick, I need you to, all your sickness, I need you to get it right now. I need you to get your sickness and stick it on here. Write it on here. Yell it out. Give me your sickness, not me personally. Put it on this paper. Put your sickness on this paper. Now with sickness, we're going to stand on the scripture. For those that are Christian, or for those that believe in the Bible, Exodus 23:25 says, worship the Lord your God, and his blessings will be on your food and your water. I will take away sickness from among you. Exodus 23:25, if you subscribe to the King James Bible and you believe it, worship the Lord your God, and his blessings will be on your food, you saying grace, your water. Think about it. Your food goes inside of you. Water goes inside of you. Your immune system is inside of you. So he's going to bless it so that the sickness doesn't come in. I will take away sickness from among you. So stand on that scripture, Exodus 23:25, that God of the King James Bible will take away your sickness. Look at your sickness burning away. Look at your sickness burning away. We're going to be careful. It's burning away. It's burning away. It's burning away. It's burning away. If you want to see it, it's burning away. Now, next, we talked about sickness. What about this disease? So any disease that you got right now, any disease you got, I got a scripture for you. So while I'm reading this scripture, I want you to write your sickness project it right here. Project your disease. You already did your sickness. Project your disease on this. Now we're going to Exodus 15 and 26. It says, he said, if you listen carefully to the Lord your God and do what is right in his eyes, if you pay attention to his commands and keep all his decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. Oh, so what he said is he can stop the sickness that he's put on other people. He said he put it on other people because he created it and he allowed it to get on them. But in this case, he said he put it on them. And by the way, the Egyptians, they were black. The Egyptians are black. So I just want you to keep that in your brain. I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. So if you believe that God can heal you and you believe in the word in the King James Bible, Exodus 15 and 26, I am the Lord who heals you. Your diseases right here, we about to get rid of them. Through your faith and your action. Be safe, y'all. Through your faith and your actions. It's up to you to move in your healing. I'm not healing you. It's up to you to move in that. It's up to you to stand on these words and create the faith that you need that you could be healed and stand on Exodus 15 and 26. Now, what about this depression? We're going to put the depression and the grief together. The depression and the grief we're going to put together. Okay? We talked about what they were, but we're going to get rid of them at the same time. So if you had someone pass and you feeling grief, we know it's heavy. Put it on here. At least some of it. Don't carry that load. Every day that go past, try to leave some in that day. Let's try to replace the grief with love. Let's try to replace the sadness of the person not being here to positive memories and conversations. Let's try to celebrate it. I'm going to say let's celebrate it. The reason why I put the try in there is because it's up to you to get past the TRY. It's up to you to get to the I am now doing it. It's up to you though. So depression, let's get depression gone. I'm going to be safe. I'm going to be safe. Depression. But it's up to you to keep it moving. It's up to you to learn the coping mechanisms to keep it going. It's up to you to get the help that you need to get past it. This is just the first step. This is just a point of contact. This is somebody else concerned about what you're going through without even asking you. Some people could feel your pain by seeing a post. Some people could feel your pain by hearing what's going on with you. Some people could feel your pain by watching the words that you write. But they never say nothing. They just throw up silent prayers. Or they throw up positive affirmations for you. It's even people that leave me rabbit crumbs that I pick up. I get led to them, and I definitely appreciate those. Please don't stop. They be right on time. Lastly, grief. Grief. If we could get rid of the grief, or if we could get past the grief, and grieving take time. Sometimes it takes years to grieve. And ain't nothing wrong with that. As long as you grieving moving forward, not grieving or staying in grief and moving backwards. It's like a swamp. Everybody needs water to live. But the cleanest water is water that's flowing like a river or a stream that's constantly flowing, that's constantly moving. But you get stagnant water like a swamp, it starts to stink. You get rotted leaves, rotted roots, rotted trees, mosquitoes, disease fester, you get cut, you got leeches. You know what I'm saying? That's staying in grief. Staying in grief is like staying in the just nasty, dirty, stinky swamp. The water is black. Black is beautiful, but black water is not. It's not. So we need to get out of that swamp. We need to get out the grief swamp. We got to try to turn that swamp into a stream or a river. So we got to get out of that place and try to carve a path so that water will start flowing. And once the water starts flowing, the environment could get healthier. Your environment in your home will become better because you're not festering in the grief and the sadness as much. And the people around you will notice that you're becoming happier. So therefore they become happier. So things get better. But it starts with you wanting to get out of the grief. Take your time. Don't rush. Just move forward as much as you can. Don't let nobody try to rush you to grieve. Look at some courses on how to grieve healthily. Quite sure you can find them. Use whatever positive information you can. It's services out there. I personally do grief counseling. Grief. Give me that. Put the grief on here. Don't give it to me. Put the grief on here. I don't want it. Put it on here. Put the grief on here. Dig it up. Put it on here. And we ending after this. This is it. Going once. Your point of contact, put your grief right here. And it's going to be up to you to get it going after that. We're going to burn it up, though. We're going to be safe, too. We're going to be safe. We're going to be safe. We're going to be safe. And there it is. So hopefully this helps you. I've been led to do this, and I was obedient. My obligation fulfilled. I hope whoever needed this receives it, and it's up to you to move forward and turn that swamp into a flowing stream. That being said, Bible study in the hood. Amen.